Hello YouTube. Today I'm back with another video from Don'tSpeakNews.com. This is me reading an article off of Don'tSpeakNews.com called "The Gloves Are Off, ICE, Electric Shock Weapons, and Secret Police. Literal Gestapo." Like, I would have to agree with the left for once. For once, I will have to agree with the left that this is pretty Gestapo-like and barbaric-like. Very barbaric. But I'm not trying to turn it into politics, but we were meant to get these illegal aliens out, but they turned it around on American citizens, which that's shameful. So yeah, the gloves are off, ICE, electric shock weapons, and secret police by John W. Whitehead and Nasha Whitehead at Global Research, reposted with permission. Give me a minute. Okay. This is what comes of giving a lawless agency unlimited funds to build detention centers, terrorize communities, and act as a secret police force. Anything goes. Masked raids, unmarked vehicles, warrantless arrests, racial profiling, sweeping surveillance, detention camps, excessive force, citizens dragged off the streets, protesters targeted, congressional oversight obstructed, now adds electric shock gloves to the arsenal. Immigrants and custom enforcement is preparing to spend as much as $20 million to equip its agents with thousands of gloves capable of delivering painful electric shocks through direct contact with a person's skin. The devices are called GLOVES with a period in the middle, generated low output voltage emitters, and the government has dressed them up in the predictably sanitized language of police state as conductive distraction and de-escalation devices. Don't be fooled by the benign sounding euphemisms. These pains are compliance weapons. ICE agents wearing the gloves will be able to touch a person's exposed skin and deliver an electric shock intended to compel obedience or get a confession out of a person. You know, waterboarding, electric shock therapy, not electric shock therapy, but that's what they're going to dress it up as, is electric shock therapy. It's going to help pray away the gaze, pray away the sickness and stuff, but it's gonna, they might even use it to get a confession out of anybody. Anyways, where was I? The White House border czar, Tom Homan, has been remarkably candid about the purpose. It's another device to help someone get compliant when they are not. There is that word again, compliance. It has been one of the most dangerous words in the vocabulary of the American police state. Increasingly, government agencies are being taught and public conditioned to accept that refusal to immediately comply with a government agent's command is sufficient justification for force. Question an officer, hesitate, pull away, protest, demand to know why you are being detained, refuse to surrender your phone, attempt to record an arrest, insist your constitutional rights, fail to obey quick enough. The government's answer is increasingly the same: compel or die, compel or suffer the consequences. Now, these consequences may come through touch of a gloved hand. The Trump administration insists that these shock gloves offer ICE agents a less lethal alternative to guns, tasers, pepper spray, but that is not the real choice confronting us. The question is whether an agency with ICE's records of abuse, secretly and constitutional violations should be entrusted with yet another tool that makes it easier to inflict pain in order to force submission or get a confession. Waterboarding, hanging to near death and then releasing them, which is the same thing as waterboarding pretty much. Shocking to get a confession, naked therapy, code therapy as they call it. These are all words to dress it up nicely. This is an agency who detention centers... Wait. Okay, the problem is not merely the weapon. The problem is who will be wearing it. This is an agency whose detention centers remain largely closed to public scrutiny, whose initial reports have obscured or omitted serious uses of force, and whose agents have repeatedly operated in ways that make meaningful public accountability difficult. Meanwhile, ICE has built an expensive surveillance dragnet incorporating facial recognition, license plate readers, cell phone tracking, and massive databases capable of locating and monitoring people across this country. Okay, put all of these pieces together and the picture should disturb Americans, largely disturb Americans regardless of their views on immigration. This is no longer merely an immigration enforcement bureaucracy. It is a architectural of a national police force. Okay. And increasingly, ICE is being positioned to serve the role that secret police forces have historically served in authoritarian systems, operating with extraordinary power, obscured identities, limited accountability, and broad mandate to identify, track, detain, and remove people the government has designated as undesirable. History teaches that authoritarian governments do not begin with death camps and firing squads. They begin by normalizing powers that once would have been considered intolerable. They begin by identifying a population that can be stripped of rights with minimal political consequences. They begin by convincing citizens that extraordinary government powers are necessary because people being harder and harder to hold accountable, they begin to expand detention. They begin by expanding surveillance. They begin by lowering the threshold for the use of force. And they teach the public that obedience is the price of safety. ICE is serving the prototype for what much broader system of authoritarian governments could look like. Immigrants may be the government's primary targets today, but they will not necessarily be the government's only targets tomorrow. The constitutional danger has never depended on whether one sympathizes with the first people subjected to the government abuse. The question is whether we allow governments to acquire powers that can eventually be turned against anyone. Once the government normalizes masked agents carrying out warrantless sweeps, what prevents those tactics from being used in the name of fighting drugs or terrorism or political extremism or civil unrest or public health emergency or whatever crisis comes next? Once the government builds massive databases capable of tracking people's movements and association, those systems do not disappear when immigration enforcement changes. Once detention infrastructure is built, it can be repurposed. Once federal agents are allowed to operate outside those meaningful oversights, restoring those restraints become extraordinarily difficult. Once Americans accept the principle that government agents may inflict pain merely to secure compliance, the Constitution has already lost its crucial ground. And once anything goes in the name of immigration enforcement, there is little to prevent the same powers from being repurposed in the next crisis. ICE's electric shock gloves are merely the latest manifestation of a far more dangerous philosophy that says government knows best. Yeah. We're fucked. We're fucked, people. We are screwed if we don't fight back. But anyways, fight back, please. The government knows best that government commands must be obeyed. The government agents should be feared rather than questioned. The constitutional rights become negotiable whenever the officials invoke public safety. That is accountability is an inconvenience, and that force is an acceptable substitute for consent. Okay, this is precisely the mentality when the Constitution was intended to restrain. Fourth Amendment does not say obey first and challenge the government later. The First Amendment does not say protect only speech that the government finds agreeable. The Fifth Amendment does not permit government to dispense with due process because officials have decided someone probably does not belong here. The Constitution contains no exception allowing agents to punish people simply because they fail to show significant deference, yet that is the direction in the way which the American police state continues to move. As we make clear in Battlefield America: War on the American People and its fictional counterpart, the Eric Blair Diaries, every expansion of government power comes wrapped in assurances that it will be used sparingly, responsibly, and only against the people who deserve it. Then the definition of people who deserve it expands. The government power does not police itself. Neither will ICE. The gloves are off. The question is now, how much more power Americans are willing to place in the government's hands before we finally recognize what is being built around us. That is all. That is all of what it has to say. But what I have to say is, I agree with this.